So welcome back. Today we're in part 2. We're talking about the promises and perils of artificial intelligence. So just a reminder of some of the things we talked about last time. So we mentioned that AI is a discipline within computing science, and AI is a discipline striving to get these machines behave intelligently by performing tasks that normally would require human-level intelligence. Within AI, there is a subfield called machine learning. And so machine learning is trying to basically, is this a subfield where we try to come up with methods to teach, between quotes, a machine to do something, one of these tasks that normally require the human level intelligence. And within machine learning, there's what we call supervised learning. And within supervised learning, we have deep learning. So deep learning is not machine learning. It is one of the paradigms of machine learning. And machine learning is not AI, it's one of the subfields of AI. Okay. So deep learning, what is it? We talked about it. We said it's basically these fancy architectures using the artificial neurons to build an artificial neural network that would typically learn to predict something. It learns a flexible function. So what is artificial intelligence? Unfortunately, the majority of people they build this definition in their heads based on movies, science fiction movies. And then unfortunately, these sensational science fiction movies typically that portray the wrong image of what AI really is. And it's typically AI against us, or them against us, the machines against the humans, which is not necessarily what the reality is. So people are afraid of AI for different reasons. One of the reasons that they claim is that AI is kicking them away from their jobs, it's stealing their jobs. We are losing jobs to AI. But I remind you that this is not new. It has been around for a very long time. When the steam engine was invented to automate difficult tasks, many people pointed the finger at these machines saying, hey, what about me? This manual task is my job, I'm losing it. And then the same thing happened with when the whole industry around the horses vanished because of the automobile industry. That was a big deal as well. People were saying, well, that machine, that automobile is actually threatening my job, threatening my life, stealing my job. And now we see it with AI. But the reality is different. Because, well, it's the same each time, but it's different from what we perceive. It's not that the machine will steal the jobs. Actually, the jobs are changing, and new jobs are created continuously. So AI should be seen as a tool to help us do things that we couldn't do, or we used to do, but now we can do them more efficiently. Well, actually, AI is a more sophisticated tool than that. Actually, it's even more sophisticated than that. It's a very complex machine that we can use as a tool to do new things that we were not able to do. So you should see AI as a partner. We should coexist and work together for the betterment of our society. Actually, there is a danger, but the biggest danger is not AI, but we humans represent the danger to ourselves by maliciously or inappropriately using AI. So the way we selfishly use AI can represent a great danger. Take the example of weaponizing AI, that's a folly. Okay. There are other kinds of dangers. Many people are aware of generative AI, so AI that generate things, like generate pictures or voice or videos or text. We often talk about deep fakes. Those can be very, very problematic, especially that you can impersonate people and you can make them say or make them do things that they didn't do. So we create fake news, and that's a big danger to our society because people believe these deep fakes very, very easily. Very recently, in Canada, so François-Philippe Champagne, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, last week actually, announced this code of conduct, which is a voluntary code of conduct with 6 principles. It invites people using AI to adhere to these principles. One is accountability. So we need to implement a clear risk management framework when we develop AI. Safety, we need to perform impact assessment and see what are the risks and basically take steps to mitigate the risks. Fairness and equity, there's another principle, basically to make sure that whatever AI we develop is not biased towards this group of people or that group of people throughout the life cycle. So we have to continuously check that it doesn't become biased if it wasn't biased before. Transparency, this is extremely important, is to show when something is AI generated, the consumers have to know that it's actually AI generated, it's not true, it's not fake, it's not real. So AI generated content can be identified by the consumers. The 5th principle is human oversight and monitoring. So we have to ensure that the system is continuously monitored, and validity and robustness, ensure that the system operates effectively and secure against any attacks, because any system that you develop, people will try to attack it. So these are principles that were announced on the 27th of September, so last week basically, and we hope that Canadian companies will follow these principles and other companies will follow suit, other countries will follow suit as well. So what we talked about also on Tuesday, is machine learning, and I showed you that machine learning is, at least for supervised machine learning, you have data that is labeled by experts, and then the algorithm will go over that data to generate a classification model or predictive model. And that model can be represented by many different things, so it can be a decision tree, can be a set of rules, can be a formulae, can be hyperplane crossing the space, it can be a neural network. What you should remember is just it's a function, a very flexible function f, that given x, here an entity, will return y was this, which is a label. So if I give it many x's here, I can use that function to derive their y, okay, the labels. And x can be any object here, and y can be anything that I want to predict. So how can we use this? And since this is in medicine, we are in pathology, so in fact medicine, I will give you more examples in medicine, so in precision health more particularly. This is what we call personalized medicine. And often when we talk about personalized medicine, we think about the genome, okay, genes. Well, machine learning can allow us to go beyond the microarray data analysis or SNPs, genomics, metabolomics, and microbiome. And I'll show you examples where we go beyond. Okay, so what do we do? What can be done? So machine learning can be used, this is a very generic case. I have a novel patient, a new patient. That patient has a record. I have some information about that patient, and I need to decide about a treatment, about a diagnosis, about whatever. In this particular case, I'm trying to decide about whether a disease will be recurrent or not, will it appear or not. And I have historical data about other patients. They have their record, and I know for those patients whether that recurred or not. Yes, no. So this is now my data, and these are my labels. This is my labeled data. And I'll use it to learn a model. This is my model, here's my cloud again. And that model will be used to predict for this one. So now this is x. This is my function, f of x, and it returns a y. And it'll tell me, for this x, no, it will not recur. So that's the prediction that happens. So this is a very generic case. I'll give you an example for genomics. So here's a case where I have a person who has cancer, breast cancer, and after treating with chemotherapy, I want to know what kind of adjuvant treatment I can give at the end. So with a biopsy, I can do microdata analysis, and I'll see the gene expressions. And if I have data from previous patients, and I know, for example, whether they're ER positive or ER negative, I can predict for this patient, this becomes my X, and I can predict the ER positive or ER negative, that's my Y. And then once I know if it's ER positive or negative, I can prescribe a particular treatment. Okay, so this is a personalized treatment because I know for this particular patient, she's ER negative. So this has been done already. I'm giving you here the publication. But it can be done for many, many, many other cases. Like I want to predict whether who's going to develop breast cancer, whether the breast cancer will reoccur or not. I can predict who will reject more than another patient transplant. I can predict, for example, for prostate cancer, the toxicity level for that particular patient if I give this treatment, radiotherapy in this case. I can predict who will lose muscle mass, and so forth. Okay. So yesterday, no, Tuesday, I gave you an example with diabetic retinopathy. Here it is again. So in this particular case, I have data. The X is the images. Retinal images, what we call fundus, and the label is the grade level. And the grade level is based on how many hemorrhage or microaneurysms has been detected in the image, and we can build a model that, given a new image that hasn't been graded, it will predict the grading for it automatically. But also, if we have data that is labeled at the pixel level, we can learn another model that learns at the pixel level, and we can transfer that knowledge to this model. And now both can work together to not only predict the grading, but also can tell me which pixels have these problems, microaneurysms or hemorrhage. So it gives a kind of an explanation to the decision made, the prediction made. Here's another example. In this case, this is a nuclear magnetic resonance. This is for the analysis of urine. And you can do a spectroscopy for that particular patient, and that information can be used here also to learn different Ys for a particular X. So this can be used for predicting a disease, predicting also a treatment, and so forth. Okay. Another example, completely different. So I'll give you different examples where machine learning can help in medicine in general. This is the case of diabetes. So these are type 1 diabetes, patients with type 1 diabetes. They have to inject themselves every day, sometimes 4 times a day. They inject insulin, but how do they know how much insulin they have to inject? Well, typically what they do, doctor will tell them you have to inject how many milliliters, and then they take notes in the journal. I ate this and this, I have this activity, and my sugar level was this. After a few months, they go back to the doctor looks at that and then says, okay, you adjust this level of insulin to a new level. Either you reduce or you increase, and it happens every few months. So the adaptation is every few months, and it's done by a human. It's not scalable, and it's not very good for the patient because they have to wait months. So the idea is that instead of having a dose based on this formula that you have to revisit every few months, you can learn automatically what is the best dosage so that the sugar level in the blood is optimal. Okay. And then the recommendation is done on the spot, every day, instead of waiting for 4 months. And that's using what we call reinforcement learning. Okay. We learn a policy of increasing or reducing the level of insulin. So you see that has absolutely nothing to do with genomics. Here's another example that has absolutely nothing to do with genomics, which is also considered precision health. This is the case of workers that are injured at work, and they are taken care of by the Workers' Compensation Board. So when they go to the clinic, there's a first assessment after the injury. That evaluation will tell us what, okay, there's an assessment, and then there's a recommendation for treatment. So this is the first treatment. After the first treatment, there's an evaluation to see whether it worked or not. Should they go back to work, or they need another treatment? Well, if they need another treatment, then we have another evaluation of the second treatment, and this is an iteration until they feel okay, and then we can send them to work. We want to have this iteration the smallest possible so that they can go back to work quickly and they feel better quickly. So if we stay here too long, it costs money, obviously, not only for us treatment, it's painful for the patient and also for the employer. They have to wait until the worker comes back. So the idea is that we get all these schedules for the different patients, and we want to learn from these what treatment we give here as a secondary treatment. So we built a classifier that learns from what? From a questionnaire. So the evaluation here after the first treatment is basically a questionnaire filled by a nurse that asks the patient, and then based on the answers in that questionnaire, they will decide whether they will do a second treatment or not. So that's the information that is given to a classifier, and the classifier learns what is the best treatment to give and recommends that, and at the end we realize that actually it's way faster than these very long schedules that we often have. This also was published. Here's I'll give you another example, completely different. This is the case of segmenting the brain before doing surgery, let's say. This segmentation is done for brain cancer, and it's done by the surgeon. It takes about half an hour, okay, for every single patient. It's a segmentation in 3D, so for all the slices. And it's tedious, and it's not necessarily consistent. So the same doctor or two different doctors doing it at different times for the same patient, they may come up with a slightly different segmentation. It's a very complicated process. So what we can do is take all these segmentations for the different patients and learn to segment automatically. How do we do segmentation? How do we differentiate basically the cancerous cells from the healthy cells? And the idea is not to replace the doctor doing the segmentation, but instead of initializing the images with nothing and then the doctor starts from scratch, no, we initialize it with the segmentation done by the computer after learning, and then the doctor only spends time to adjust it, reduce here, increase here, and then what happens is that they, instead of spending 30 minutes or 20 minutes, they spend 5 minutes. So they save time down the road. And here again, I'm showing you how machine learning can be used as a tool. It's not to replace the doctor, but to help them do their job better. And again, it has absolutely nothing to do with genomics. Here's another example that has nothing to do with genomics. This is in mental health. You can do text mining. So from text, you can extract emotions that people are expressing while writing text, or when they speak, and you can translate it into text. So text mining can help us extract emotions, and you can detect depression, especially early signs of depression from text. This is, again, machine learning. So you need to have some data that is labeled first, then you learn from that, and then you use it for text that hasn't been labeled before. Okay. So this also was published. So basically, precision health uses machine learning. Machine learning is key for precision health, and the definition encompasses more than just genetics. And I just show you many completely different examples on purpose to show you how AI will be a transformative technology for medicine in the future. Okay, but there are many people alarmed, of course. The main reason, of course, because the people are afraid of AI, but also there's this notion of privacy, because the machine learning needs data that is labeled in order to learn, and do patients consent to that first, and what are the risks accessing this data. So these are all open questions still. But what I can say is that if we don't solve this problem quickly, the jurisdictions where they don't have this as an issue will become ahead of us in medicine. And then tomorrow, instead of using our tools, we'll have to pay to use their tools. So we should build our own tools and sell those tools for the others. We have to keep that in mind. It's unfortunately almost too late. So what is precision health? Precision health is basically trying, instead of having all the patients as one cohort and treating them all the same way because they all have the same symptoms, you divide these people ideally until you get the individual, and then you treat them individually for their particular case. So you'll have different treatments for different cohorts, despite the fact that they all have the same symptoms. So another example to show you that actually the technology to do this is already here. We're using it, but we're not putting the effort because of the different reasons. I would actually point the finger at the political will. There's a lack of political will, because when there is a will, we can do it. This is a DNA. It's not the DNA that you have here. This is what we call the customer DNA, that many companies, e-commerce companies, use. So what do you have there? Well, when you go to a website, imagine a fictive kind of website, you go and register in that website. When you register in that website, you voluntarily give information that they asked you to. So what is your profession? Where do you live? How old are you? What's your telephone number? Where you going? Stuff that you may wonder, why is it that they asked me this? But you give it voluntarily. This is during registration. Then later you start buying things. And buying things means actually, indirectly, you're giving them also information that you'll like these things. And they can infer something out of that. Okay? Oh, helmets, goggles, a watch for swimming, so this guy is swimming, or maybe doing triathlons or something like that. Oh, there's a machine, coffee machine, he drinks coffee. Actually, I don't drink coffee, this is about me. This is to show you that maybe I bought it actually as a gift to somebody else, So I may introduce noise in that DNA. It's not part of my DNA, but for them it doesn't really matter. It means that I may buy these things to sell them or to use them, it doesn't really matter. I'm susceptible to buy them. But then later, I have other behavior. In addition to the activity I have other behavior, like, for example, searching for things. I searched for home improvement. I reviewed products, so they know what I like, what I disliked. I replied to comments. I started having friends on that site. So what my friends like, maybe that's why we're friends. So what they like, and I may like too. Then they go beyond. They search online automatically about me and my identity. And they may discover other friends that I have and what they like. They may discover what I tweeted about, where I'm located, where did I go, my professional connections, my locations that I visited. They go to search engines and find, or Flickr, the images, YouTube, whatever, all the things that they can find on social media about me. And they collect all that information. Why would they collect it? In order to better understand me, they can see also the news that I read or commented on, or the blogs that I sent. So from the text that I wrote, they can even extract my emotions. We talked about emotion mining. So they'll know when I'm angry, when I'm happy, when I'm sad, when they know more things than I know, because I don't remember all this stuff. But they can know it. Why would they need this information? The only purpose is to give me the ads that have an impact on me at the right time so that I buy them. So their incentive is money. That's why they invest in this. We could do the same thing for medicine. There is an incentive, but we need the political will for that. So there is information, generic information like gender, name, age, ethnic group, or whatever. There's also other information from the electronic health records, so the history. And there's information about the prescriptions that I had, so all the drugs that I took. There are images, medical images about me, the lab results, also the genetic information, whether microarray data, SNPs, or the microbiome, if analysis were done. I have other sources. At home I may have some, for measuring my blood pressure, for measuring my sugar level, for measuring whatever. They could be connected. I may have a watch that detects my heartbeat and how many steps I did. All that can be collected. They can also look at the text that I wrote and extract my mental health state. So all that information and the location where I went, and that's very important in epidemiology. And from all this, instead of recommending products for me to buy, they can actually recommend treatments for me instead of generic kind of treatments. So we have the technology. Since the technology has been used by e-commerce sites, we can also use it in medicine. So in AI in general, we achieved already amazing things. And it's not from just now. In '97 already we had incredible achievements that rocked the world. I mean, people were really shocked when Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov at chess. That was a big, big deal. Even before, in '94, here, a program developed here at U of A, Chinook, by Jonathan Schaefer. I don't know if he will be talking in this semester, but he participated in the past, I believe. They developed a program in his lab that beat the world champion at checkers. And checkers was solved, completely solved in 2007. There were other achievements. Probably remember in 2001, that's another moment in the history of AI that shook the world. In 2011, IBM Watson beat the best humans at Jeopardy. That was a big deal. Oh my gosh, how does it do that? And open the box, and I'll show you how inside how it is. It's not really magic, but it appears incredible. Self-driving cars. Now we're so used to it, we take it for granted. That was a big deal already in '95. In poker, heads-up limit Texas Hold'em poker was solved in 2014, and we beat also professionals at the no-limit version. Recently, less than a year ago, ChatGPT, that was also another event that shook the world. And we have this phenomenon, it goes up and down. There's a huge event, there's a lot of hype, and then people forget about it. And then again another event, and then people forget about it. Recently we just had ChatGPT, and now ChatGPT we take it for granted. We are waiting for the next event that will, maybe 2030, that will shake the world. Okay. But this is to say, we had a lot of incredible achievements, and each time we have this peak here with a big event, some people wake up, suddenly say, oh my gosh, that's the sign that we are doomed. We are doomed and AI will take over. So there we have many alarmists. I don't like that personally. I prefer that we consider the risk all the time, and we think about it all the time, but we shouldn't be alarmists. This is too much paranoia, I think. But nevertheless, we have many people who made a big fuss about it. One of them is Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk, who on one hand is investing in it, and on the other hand is making a big noise about it. Bill Gates and others. I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but this is the message that he's saying. He's saying basically it's an existential threat. It's not a small threat. This is existential threat. It can eliminate humans. He backpedaled a little bit afterwards. Again, I won't go into the details, but I'll let you judge by yourself. There's some non-experts who are making a lot of noise, and the real experts are saying, yeah, it's one possibility of many other possibilities. So why should we turn off the stove? We're not going to cook dinner just because there's a risk that it's poisonous. So let me tell you a story, and then you'll think about it by yourself, whether it's dangerous or not. A few years ago, David Silver from Australia came to U of A to do a PhD with Rich Sutton and Martin Miller. He was very interested in the Go game. The Go game is a very simple game, very popular in Asia, not very known in North America and in Europe, except in the Asian communities. And it's a board game that, while it is very simple to play, it's very complicated to automate, unlike, well, they're not simple, but this one is more complicated than chess and checker, for example. Why? Because the search space is humongous, very big. And David Silver was very interested in working on that problem. Why working with Martin Miller? Martin Miller is a master at the game, and he's very interested in heuristic search. So when you have a search space very big like this, how do you prune it so you don't have to search the whole thing? This is called planning as well in the AI. And at the same time, he wanted to work with on reinforcement learning. So how do you use reinforcement learning to learn how to play with Rich Sutton? He did his PhD here at U of A, and after finishing his PhD, he was hired by DeepMind in London. Okay. DeepMind didn't have a particular project. They were working on general artificial intelligence, and they told him, okay, well, work on something that can demonstrate the general artificial intelligence. What you know, just work on that. And he built a team to build a more powerful player at Go than what he did for his PhD. And then DeepMind was acquired by Google. at the end of 2013, so exactly 10 years ago, okay, in November or December 2013. And Larry Page admitted in an interview why they acquired DeepMind. They said, we acquired DeepMind because we were fascinated by two things. Their program that learned how to play Go. A few months ago, we couldn't write a program that can beat a 9-year-old kid. But now suddenly we can beat these 9-year-old kids and beat adults. So that's fascinating. But the other thing that is fascinating is that DeepMind was working also on a game, no, not on a game, on a program that can play different Atari games at the same time. That was very new. Why is it very new? If you take Deep Blue that beat Kasparov at chess, it can only play chess. It cannot do something else. But we humans can do many things at the same time. You take Chinook, it plays checkers, it cannot play chess, and vice versa. So they are very specialized. And here suddenly you have a program that can play completely different games at the same time, only looking at the pixels. So that's new. It's a program that can generalize the ideas rather than just focus on one task only. The interesting thing is that the students who were working on this, well, they were not students anymore, but the people who were working on this at DeepMind were our students as well from U of A. Unfortunately, nobody talks about U of A when journalists talk about DeepMind, but that's the reality. So what happened? Now they have all the resources of Google, because they're acquired by Google, and they build an even more powerful program that is called AlphaGo, and they played against not only adults, but champions. They played against Lisa Dahl, who was the world champion 8 times in a row. So for 8 years he was the world champion, if I'm not mistaken. And they beat Lisa Dahl. That was in 2016. So just 3 years after they were acquired by Google. So that was a shock. Everybody was amazed, and well, they didn't even register yet until the Chinese said, that's nothing. We have our own champion who's the current champion. You can't beat him. And that's KG. Well, they challenged KG and they beat KG. That was a big shock worldwide because there were millions of people watching the game live. And indeed, AlphaGo beat the best of the world. All the newspapers covered it around the world. It was a big deal. So now we moved so fast to solve it, not solve it, but we do better than a human today, and few months ago we could not even beat a 9-year-old kid. So the progression is so fast, then that's it. Computers will take over. But it didn't stop there, because AlphaGo was learning from previous games. We gave it all these games that people have played, and it learned the best moves and what to do in this case, what to do in this case. They decided to remove all that data. They gave it only the rules of the games, the game, Go. And they let it play against itself. Now that it knows the rules, it can play. So you have 2 versions of AlphaGo. We call it AlphaGo 0 because we don't give it any data. You ask me the question, does it learn by itself? Here's a case where it learned by itself. I gave it the rules, and it plays against itself. And in a few hours, it played more games than humankind in the history of the game. And then they put AlphaGo, they put AlphaGo against AlphaGo 0. And AlphaGo 0 won each game. And that's in a matter of few months. From the AlphaGo beating the humans to the AlphaGo 0 beating the AlphaGo. So that even shocked people. I mean, people could not fathom that the progression was so fast. So they decided, okay, let's remove the rules of Go and put the rules of chess. Can it learn chess and play against itself? And beat maybe the best program at chess, because now we're not talking about humans anymore, or the humans, we beat them since '97. And the new AlphaGo Zero with chess, in few hours, can beat the best program at chess. 0 to 100. So crush it completely. So, and this is just a few months after AlphaGo. So people were completely out of words. I mean, they didn't know what to say. That's it. They're doomed. Well, DeepMind didn't stop there. They took AlphaGo Zero and they moved to AlphaStar, where now they teach it to play StarCraft against professionals, and they beat the humans again. So what do you think? We're doomed. But we achieved incredible feat. I mean, you have to also know how this is done. It's not really working the way humans do it. Okay, it's working completely differently. I mean, it's like you can't compare a cheetah running in Africa in a car. The car is not going that fast like the cheetah. The plane is flying way faster than any bird on Earth, and it's not flying like a bird. So here's the same thing. We have another way of thinking about these games, completely different than we humans do. Actually, we don't even know how we humans play these games. So if I ask you the question, do you think a computer would pass a university entrance exam by 2025, in 2 years? Do you think a computer robot would pass a bar exam and become a lawyer by 2030? Well, I think this question is completely moot, especially after ChatGPT. And ChatGPT already passed all these exams. Okay? But is it really moot? Considering that intelligence, what is intelligence, inherently actually means understanding. The word intelligence comes from a Latin word meaning this understanding. Does it actually really understand? And that's an interesting question. When it recognizes that that's a dog, does it understand what a dog is? So these are interesting questions. So if I go back to Jeopardy, this is, I'm really summarizing and simplifying how it works, the Watson program. But in Jeopardy, the game, I just remind you, we are giving a statement like this, and you have to come up with an answer asking a question. So for example, I have Mozart's Last Symphony shares its name with this planet. I'm expecting you to ask the question, what is whatever, Earth or Jupiter or Mercury or whatever. Okay. So you need to kind of understand this question and know the answer quickly, and then press a button and then give that question. But I'll show you how Jeopardy can beat the humans without even understanding what that is. Nothing at all. Okay? So this is a factoid, and I need to answer by giving a question about that factoid. Okay? What did I want to say? So the way it works, I take this information, this factoid here, and then I create a query. So I'm interested in Mozart. These are facts. I extract entities out of this statement. So I have Mozart, but I also have Last Symphony, which is very important, because it's this Last Symphony that has its name being a planet. So I take Mozart, Last Symphony, and I send it as a query to Google search. Well, Google search or any search. So I will get a list of answers. These are resources that contain Mozart Last Symphony. Okay. So I'll select one of them based on some ranking heuristics, here I have a resource called Symphony number 41 Mozart Wikipedia. Okay. It doesn't give me the answer yet. There's no planet there. So I open that page. Here's the Wikipedia page for the Symphony number 41. And I go through this and I look for occurrences. So I don't actually read the page because, well, we go through the words, the sequences of words, but the computer doesn't understand the content. Remember that. But I'm looking for Symphony and Mozart, the words that are in my query. The query was Symphony, Last, and Mozart. And then look around those words, the occurrence of something else. Because I'm looking for planet, I also search for all the planets that exist. So when I look if around these words, there is an occurrence of one of these. And indeed, I see that, oops, there's Jupiter here. So I will ask, what is Jupiter? Done, I win. Okay? That's how it works. So when you look at it how it works, the recipe is actually not that complicated. There's no real reasoning. The reasoning is me, the programmer, I put my reasoning in there. The computer is not reasoning whatsoever. Okay? So some well-known people, as I told you before, like Steve Hawking and Bill Gates and Elon Musk and all that stuff, alarmists, they made a big fuss about AI. Are they right? Are they wrong? Nobody knows. But certainly being too alarmist doesn't help. There is a new institute that was created specifically for looking at and thinking about solutions regarding the different threats to humankind. And AI became one of the highest risk. So the risks to humankind are not just AI, of course. There's climate change, there's an atomic bomb, there's a nuclear war, and there are many other, an asteroid hitting the Earth and all that stuff, all these possible risks. But AI became one of the major ones for them. And basically, they're saying that these machines are against us if they become truly intelligent. Is it a real possibility or just paranoia? That's the question. I don't have an answer to it. But it is certainly not new. But at the same time, when you look at the amazing means that, for example, Google has, even with the cutting-edge AI that they have, they still make mistakes. Like you can't recognize some kittens in a photo. Then you wonder. On one hand, you tell me, hey, they can kill me and eliminate me from the face of the earth. On the other hand, they can't even recognize a kitten from a picture. So, are we there yet? Is it really a threat? We don't know. But it's not new. From the early days of AI, people were already warning us that, hey, there's a risk. So what does that mean? You should stop everything? No. It means that, well, we should put some efforts and resources to make sure that the issues that they're raising will not happen, or at least we have a way to mitigate that. Nevertheless, people still continue to publish these alarmistic articles. This is an article in the Global Mail this year, 2023, talking about machine learning brings, yes, opportunity. It's a nice thing to have, but it could pose an existential threat. So each time it's coming back again. Should I stop a few seconds for questions? Fine. I don't know if I can go through the rest in 10 minutes. I have a video I'd like to show you at the end.
You can do it.
Yeah. But I want to talk about the singularity very quickly because on Tuesday I showed you the bionic eye. And I showed you the bionic eye for a very good reason, because I think that's one path to not just the bionic eye, but the idea of adding mechanical things on us in addition to AI. That's the way we may get to something more intelligent than what we are today. So the technological singularity is a hypothetical emergence of something more intelligent than us that could eventually replace us. But this super intelligent thing will be the one driving basically innovation and progress, and we don't know how far it can go because it can self-improve itself. Okay? It'll do self-improvement and it'll go very fast. It's a recursive, rapid self-improvement at a very fast rate. Is it a possibility, or is it just science fiction? My message is that we should not dismiss it. It can happen. Actually, it will happen. But will it happen tomorrow? Will it happen in the far future? We don't know. I don't believe I will see it. I will not have the privilege to see it, but it will happen. So here's why, and here's why it's very difficult to think about it. I have a very simple metaphor. If you look at the mouse, a mouse can swim. If the food is on the other side of the river, the mouse will swim despite the risks and will adapt and move to the other side. It's not a swimming animal, it's not a fish, but it will adapt to that just to survive. The mouse, in its evolution, never ate cheese until we made the cheese. The cheese doesn't exist in nature. We made the cheese and the mouse likes it. It loves it. So it adapts to what is available to eat. The mouse builds its nest. In the field, it'll use what it finds. If it comes to my garage, it'll use other things. It'll adapt, using the paper, using cables, using plastic, whatever. The mouse, if you put it in a maze, it will actually find its way out. And if you put it back to the starting point, it'll remember the path to take to get out. So it understands the environment that it is in, it memorizes, it adapts, as I said. You can imagine the mouse making very simple arithmetic here, some simple calculations. If it's moving its babies from one place to another, it knows that, hey, I still have 2 more there. Okay, I have to go back and pick them up. It counts, actually, the babies that it has. If one of them dies, it knows it still have 2, and so forth. So it knows how to calculate. But can you imagine the mouse looking at the sky, gazing at the sky, and imagining that those are not holes, those are actually planets, or maybe other mice live in there? Can you imagine the mouse looking at the cheese and wonder about the protein, the folding of the protein making the cheese? It's not possible. Can you imagine the mouse coming in my garage and building its nest in my engine because it's warm? The mouse will understand what that engine is for. It has no idea. Okay. Same thing now about these planets. It sees a rocket ship being sent to space, doesn't understand what it is. It has no idea. It cannot do calculations with abstractions like us. No. And the mouse has no idea what we can think and how we think. It thinks only in its own scale. It can do amazing things, but certainly not at that level. And that tells you what? Well, the mouse is intelligent, but we are way more intelligent. So there are different levels of intelligence. And like the mouse cannot imagine what we imagine, we cannot imagine what something more intelligent than us can imagine. So we can have a scale. Imagine a scale like that. We are intelligent. These are sub-intelligent. They're less intelligent than us. But we can imagine something super intelligent, whether it is a computer or something else. We don't know what it is. And we don't know necessarily how it thinks. Okay? So we can definitely comprehend the intelligence of the mouse, but we can't comprehend the intelligence of something more intelligent than us. It can happen. Why are we so arrogant to think that that's the absolute intelligence? So there are many ways of getting there. This is what I was thinking about, the different paths. So I'll put all the paths here and then I'll talk about them very quickly. Oops. So there is, and people have tried, and they're still trying, to actually use biology to get people more intelligent by selection. Okay. Is it ethical? Certainly not. But it doesn't mean that because it's not ethical that people are not doing it. They're trying, but it'll take a while. It's very hard. And evolution is taking a very, very, very long time. I'm arguing that Aristotle or Einstein had the same kind of intelligence, except that they were not exposed to the same kind of cumulative knowledge that we have. Now, the second possibility is that AI will eventually exceed the human intelligence. But that takes a long time as well, because it needs not only software, the AI is software, but it also needs the hardware to sustain it. Hardware is actually evolving very fast. The software is very slow. We're still using technology from the 50s, actually. The third path is when you merge technology and biology of the humans. So you mix the two. This is what we call the cybernetic singularity. Now you see why I talked about the bionic eye, and I'll go back to it later. And then the fourth path is the possibility that some intelligence could emerge from many things put together, like in the Internet of Things. You have a thermostat connected to the camera is connected to whatever, the switch is connected to the light, and you have billions of those. Well, like you have billions of these cells, something emerge out of the billions of cells that we have. Who knows? Maybe something can emerge out of that. We don't know. It doesn't mean something intelligent has to be the same intelligence as us. I mean, it can be a different form of intelligence. And one example of this that I use often is the case of ants. Every single ant, you can't imagine that an ant is smart enough to think like us, but put together collectively, they can do amazing things that actually sometimes you scratch your head and say, a human cannot do that. Okay, if you, and how you see what the collective can do, well, just dig a nest and see what do they build in the nest. And I have a video, but we don't have the time to watch that. Maybe I'll share it and we'll put it online. People dug these nests by pouring cement in the nest, and then they dig it out, and then you see the structure. The architecture is phenomenal, with different rooms, different highways, and each room is for a specific task and for a specific thing that they put in there. They even catch other insects and they raise them in there to, I mean, it's phenomenal what they do. And you can't imagine that one ant was the architect of the whole thing. So, this being said, I want to focus a little bit on number 2, because, number 3, because this is where I think we will go far faster. And we already live in a world where we have cyborgs. We don't consider them as cyborgs yet, but we built artificial hips and artificial knees and artificial limbs, and but don't think only a cyborg is a human with these mechanical things. You can also have the other way, like here. You can have also a robot to which we add some cells. And that happened already, okay, years ago already. We have these small robots that are controlled by rat cells, rat brain cells, and they allow them to turn left and right and so forth. And the interesting thing is that these rat cells don't live very long, so they replace them, and then the behavior changes. So even though the robot is a cookie cutter, you can see all the robots are the same, but they have different behaviors because they are controlled by different cells from different rats and so forth. So it's very interesting. So don't only think about this possibility, there's also the other possibility. So last time I talked about, for example, the smart contact lenses and the bionic eye, and today this is what they can see. But soon, as I told you, we would be able to see with incredible zooms. Like this person here is there, but we can see at night. We can see with heat maps. We can track objects, segment the image and track objects. But it goes beyond the eye. I'll show you this very quickly. Imagine if you were able, from the roof of a skyscraper, to see the details like that in the square on the other side. Wouldn't you want to have an eye like that? That's incredible. Can you imagine having an eye that can see through the wall with X-ray? It can be done. So people started dreaming, and some people started already adding to themselves things, because it's not legislated, there's no rule, no nothing. This is the case of an RFID put here in the skin, behind the skin, and then you can, and some companies are actually asking their employees to have that, because then they can open the door, they're identified as they walk into the room, they can operate the photocopier, they can operate the slot machines, and so forth. But people are doing it to themselves. Here, some kids who put underneath the skin here a detector for Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi hotspot. So as they walk, the LED will turn on and say, oops, there's a hotspot here, and then we can connect to it. It's silly, but they do it. There's another case of a guy who has a camera that videotapes everything that they see, but then they need to store it somewhere, so he put underneath his skin here a hard drive. And he can record things that he sees every day. Something that are very intrusive like this, and this is terrible. But now we have sensors that are printed, like a tattoo. And it's a sensor. So this RFID can be replaced by something that later you can wash off. Show you another thing. This is real. This is at Stanford. This is a brain implant to help people who are paraplegic, for example, to control things, whether it's the wheelchair or a cursor on the screen and things like that. But this is from an article, and I'll show you the video, that talks about Elon Musk's Neuralink. So Elon Musk, that you talked about before, everybody thinks about Tesla, the car. Okay? But he has many other companies, not just SpaceX and all that stuff, but he has also Neuralink. And what is Neuralink trying to do? It's trying to create the perfect brain implant so you can do different things, whether it is, actually he's trying the bionic eye first, but he wants to be able to upload things, download things, and who knows what. He has a list of possible applications, actually. So I'd like to show you a video very quickly. Do you see it? No, you don't see it. How do I show it? I have to, well, there's an ad. Come back here, do that, and then move this here. I have to stop it and put the volume. Oops. Sorry guys.
Clinical trials in people with brain implants, and Dr. Paul Niajukian is a professor. Neuralink, Elon Musk's brain chip company, recently pushed back on claims that it violated animal welfare laws a few years ago while testing on monkeys. This year, the company plans to test on human subjects. But when it does, what would this major step mean for brain implant science? Academics like me have conducted clinical trials in people with brain implants, and Dr. Paul Niajukian is a professor of bioengineering and neurosurgery. He directs the brain interfacing laboratory at Stanford. For about 20 years now, academic research brain implants, up until this point, more or less, have almost exclusively been with wires. The difference that the N1 has, the Neuralink, it's fully implantable, it is battery powered, it is wireless. All of this is being done over Bluetooth protocol.
Let's dive into the science behind Neuralink to understand how exactly human brain chips work.
The science behind how these implants work is not that different from how you would go about trying to measure the energy from a AA battery. It's the same principle that we're doing with these brain implants. This is called neuroelectrophysiological recording. When you move your arm to the right, certain sets of neurons are activated in a certain pattern. Listening in to that activity and that pattern, you can predict very quickly which direction the arm is going to move. These are the neurons that are directly wired to your muscle.
Unless that pathway from the brain to the spinal cord to the muscle is damaged, the way it is in patients with paralysis.
That pathway is damaged, then the neural signals, the signals from the brain, aren't going to get down to move muscles. But in many cases, the signals are still present in the brain, they're just not getting out. So if you reach in and put something that listens in to those neurons, then you know what's happening to the muscle.
And that's the goal of a brain implant. Now let's look at a timeline of brain interface breakthroughs over the years. Scholars have long been interested in how the brain works. So it's important to view these new developments at Neuralink as a culmination of breakthroughs by brain-machine interface researchers, especially in the last few decades. For example, in 2002, the first demonstration of real-time cursor control in monkeys took place. 2008, a monkey controlling a robotic arm in 3 dimensions fed itself. 2012, the first brain-controlled robotic arm by a human. 2017, a human controlled a cursor mentally to type out words and sentences. Dr. Niyojukin was part of this study, as well as the one in 2018, where a human subject mentally controlled a tablet to do things like browse the web, send emails, and play games or music.
All that's been done with a couple hundred electrodes.
But in 2019, Neuralink, a private company, changed the game when it unveiled a pig named Gertrude with a wireless implant that monitored about 1,000 neurons.
The neurons are like wiring, and you kind of need an electronic thing to solve an electronic problem.
That was a very interesting moment because it signaled to the community that they're serious, they're investing, they're building hardware from scratch, and they're putting it in large animals. For the pig, the electrodes were implanted in somatosensory cortex, allowing them to measure sensory activity, like that of taking a step. Every time that particular neuron they were listening to fired, you would hear this little pop or click from the audio channel. And so the moment I heard it, right, it's like, oh yeah, hold, they got neurons. You just recognize it instantly. You know what neurons sound like if you've been listening to them for decades. And that's what they were communicating, right? They were telling the field, we've got neurons, pay attention.
And overnight, it seemed the industry took notice. Then, in April of 2021, Neuralink released the so-called Mind Pong video.
Pager is the name. It's a rhesus macaque, which is the type of monkey that is very commonly used in this field. Implanted with 2 of the N1 devices.
Sorry, guys.
This is the Neuralink devices performing brain control of cursor on screen. That's extremely significant because here Neuralink is showing their new hardware, their new device in their hands, works in a monkey. That's the level that's necessary to convince the scientific community, to convince the FDA that you're ready to go into human clinical trials. That's the evidence the FDA is looking for.
The recording power of the N1 device in Pager was eye-opening because of the sheer number of individual electrodes that had been implanted.
There was definitely a lot of clever engineering that went into that to build a device that can transmit 2048 electrodes worth of spiking information, right, of digital ones and zeros of spikes over a radio wirelessly. And when you have that many channels, the performance that you should be able to get should eclipse what we've been able to do in the academic field. And the maximum number of electrodes I've ever recorded from is 200 to 300.
So with all those electrodes, how does a device like the N1 get implanted in a subject's brain?
Make no mistake, this is neurosurgery. It is not a joke. This requires cutting the skin, getting down to skull, drilling a hole in the skull, exposing what's called the dura, which is this protective layer of tissue that surrounds the brain. cutting the dura, folding it back to expose the brain, and then you get to the surface of the brain where you can implant the electrodes. The biggest risks with these types of techniques are infection, bleeding, and tissue damage.
So what would it take for the FDA to approve clinical trials in humans?
The Neuralink device are called Class 3 medical devices. They are implantable and they're going into very sensitive body cavities. That is the highest level of scrutiny that the FDA assigns to medical devices. They don't have a predecessor. There's no previous example that's approved. And so, very appropriately, they got a high bar they have to cross in order to get it approved. So what Neuralink has to do next is prepare a very long and technical document with all the evidence from animal studies that their device is safe and effective. This document is submitted to the FDA, who has 90 days to review and give them an answer. If the FDA says yes, then their clinical trial is approved and Neuralink can enroll and recruit human participants. We're on the cusp of a complete paradigm shift. This type of technology has the potential to transform our treatments, not just for stroke and paralysis and degenerative disease, neurodegenerative disease, but also for pretty much every other type of brain disease, from Parkinson's, epilepsy, to dementias, Alzheimer's, and even psychiatric disease. Seeing Neuralink and the other companies in this space start an industry around neuroengineering, brain-machine interfaces, neuroprosthetics, has been a tremendous amount of validation for neuroscientists and engineers who have been working in this space for decades. How much happier could the scientific community be than to give birth to an industry?
So will this industry someday lead to the creation of cyborg humans with superhuman intelligence?
There's all sorts of wild speculation in our field. I think science fiction is wonderful at telling very creative and captivating stories about all sorts of things, including brain-machine interfaces. The reality is we are in such early stages of this space, right, where we are just barely able to record from neurons that control muscles and try to interpret something, glean meaningful information out of that. We're going to be in that space for decades. That's where I will focus much of my career, is understanding what's going on with these neurons and the circuits that they are working on. That's where the last 15 years of my work has been, and the coming several decades of my work will focus in on this space because that's going to be the forefront of neuroscience. The rest, I think, is fun to think about, but I don't see how that's going to be in the foreseeable future.
Well, that ends the presentation. I was hoping to have enough time to have a conversation